started and see if other folks drop in after we get started. So the first topic that we wanted to discuss, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is the meeting time. So refresher for anyone who doesn't recall. So the meetings right now are alternating bi-monthly, with one call that happens at 12 Eastern on Thursday, and then this call, which happens at 3 Eastern on Thursday, the first Thursday of the month in both cases. And we set this up um, in an effort at the time to make it a better time for folks on the other side of the world. But I think in hindsight, it's quite obvious that it's actually not that much better. We didn't push the time zone enough forward. Um, I don't know why at the time we didn't think to say, well, it should probably be 4 o'clock and not 3 o'clock. Because that would make it 6 a.m. and not 5 a.m., which is a little bit better, but a significant difference for anyone who's ever tried to get up for a meeting at 5 a.m. Um, so that's one of the things that we wanted to discuss is a proposal to, and we're gonna have to put this in for a doodle poll for everyone in the group, but we wanted to discuss it here in the call, first of all. And at the same time, kind of see if there's any kind of a preference for day of the week that would be better than Thursday. One of the things that we're trying to unpack is sometimes we're struggling with attendance on calls and we're not sure if it's related to day of the week or if it's related to time zone or what have you. But anyway, I'll open the floor there to thoughts, see if anybody has any opinions on day of the week. I think I don't see the only thing that I would suggest is I personally think that both Monday and Friday are bad ideas, because a lot of holidays tend to span those days that happen just around the weekend.
Yeah, I would
Um,
agree with it. I would agree with that.
And Thursday this time is Friday in Australia, so
that's
Uh-huh.
that's true.
Yeah, yeah. Firstly, couple of things. Yeah, thank you for tabling this and making time for the discussion. Um, yeah, Friday Eastern time is unworkable in Australia because that is Saturday.
Of course.
So yeah, Monday to Thursday is preferred. The other thing I wanted to mention is we may have to revisit this topic or adjust for daylight savings. Uh, Now, most Australian states observe daylight savings. I know you all do as well on the in Eastern time, um, and I think that might be one of the reasons why this meeting is at an awkward time right now. Is perhaps it was actually scheduled at a suitable time a few months ago, but now that we're in winter and you're in summer, the time zones have shifted.
Well, I mean, the meeting time would have shifted as well, so I don't think, unless are you saying, Vaughn, that your state does not observe daylight savings?
Oh, we do, but the thing is, because your daylight savings is counter-cyclical to ours, the net effect is that we go from being, I think it's 14 hours difference to 12 hours difference, or maybe it's 16. I can't remember, but
Oh
yeah,
my goodness, I never realized that. Okay.
yeah. They move in reverse, and I think the other issue is that they don't always switch on exactly the same weekend. So it could be that ours is out of phase with yours by a couple of weeks, and so there's even a few weeks in the middle there where one country is in daylight saving and the other isn't.
Yeah.
Now in terms of in Australia it's done by state, and certainly on the eastern seaboard of Australia, I think Queensland is the only state that doesn't observe daylight savings, but I don't think there's anyone from Queensland joining. I'm not sure. I know that Prophecy had put forward someone for the board for the PGB, but I'm not sure what state that person is in. So I don't know yet what their time zone is.
Correct. Yes, we do have a second individual from Australia who's trying to make an effort to join these calls, which, you know, changing the time could definitely help with. I never realized until now what you just mentioned to a daylight saving. That's how it's the opposite. I mean, it makes perfect sense when you think about it, but I just never realized it.
Yeah, I remember I lived in Eastern time for 3 years, and I remember meeting with my management back in Australia was sometimes of the year it wasn't too bad. Other times it was, I was getting up very early and they were staying at work very late. So yeah.
Oh.
So do you have a suggestion, Vaughn, since you would have the most experience of trying to span the time zones? Do you have a suggestion of something that's a bit more humane on your side that is a workable slot?
Yeah, I had some ideas. So first of all, if we eliminate Friday as unworkable, and then I think also we should try to keep it within business hours for Eastern time. I'm sure you would all agree that the majority of the members that would be attending PGB are in Eastern time US. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for those people. I think it's reasonable for those of us on the on the Pacific Rim to be to meet out of business hours, but within within reason. So I would move that before 6 a.m. is probably too early. So from 6, and I'm making the big assumption here that it's Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is UTC plus 10. So I'd say anything that's outside of 6 a.m. until midnight is probably not going to be ideal. And so, yeah, therefore I would say, what is it, 3 p.m. over there at the moment, or just after 3 p.m. So I'd say between 4 and 5 is probably workable, 4 and 5 p.m. And then up until I think 10 a.m. in the morning. So just avoiding that time between, in your time zone, 10 a.m. until 4 p.m., which is midnight till 6 a.m. in Eastern Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, which, I mean, if we assume 9 to 5, that really leaves us sort of 2 1-hour slots at either end. Yeah, so 9 till 10, 4 till 5. If we extend that a little bit, say 8 till 6, then we get a couple of hours each way. But yeah, keen to hear what others think.
I think the first suggestion, the 4 to 5 or the later in the day Eastern is a better time if we have folks from the West Coast to the US. With JK in Atlantic and us in Eastern, the morning up until 10 a.m. would work fine also. But then that might kind of squash any West Coast participation. I don't know if we have any right now, but just in general. So
Well, I would recommend we do the alternating like we do now, and maybe make one of them 9 a.m. and one of them 4 p.m. because the advantage of the 9 a.m. one is Europe, because we do have European members.
oh, good point. Yeah.
And they're obviously not on now because it's 9 p.m. I mean, sometimes they do attend anyway, but
Well, and yeah, I'm very flexible. I'm fine with either. Your logic is sound.
What is so Vaughn, if we're looking at like 9 a.m., 8 a.m., 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Eastern time, what time is that in your time zone? That would be
So yeah, 9 a.m. Eastern would be 11 p.m., which certainly for me is totally fine. I could even do midnight in a pinch, so which would be 10 a.m. where you are.
I mean, I think you're volunteering for this, and we have to keep that in mind. So I think that might be a very good middle ground. Then what Duncan just said is we alternate between the two, 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern, and both of those times are workable for Vaughn. And that way, it's easier on the European folks at least once every 2 months.
Yep.
I mean, even in the alternating months, I mean, we're not talking about the middle of the night. Like at 4 p.m. Eastern is 8 p.m. In Central European, I believe. So it's 4 hours different, right? Or is it five? It's 5 hours different. Yeah.
Actually, if they're synced up with daylights, it's 5 hours to England, 6 hours to Central European.
Correct.
So
That's still doable. I mean, Baz has been on calls at 9 and 10 of other calls
Yeah.
we've had. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not great, but it's at least doable. This way, I mean, Australia sort of has to push it, but at least Europe can attend one every other week, and US Eastern can attend both, and US Western can attend one. And if they had to get up super early, they could. But that's what we'd really lose is the West Coast once a month, but that's dealable with, I think, or once every 2 months.
No, based on the membership, especially now. Yeah. I like the rotating.
I don't believe that right now, I could be mistaken, but I don't believe right now there's a PGB member on the West Coast.
Right. Right.
Good.
Okay. So if everyone on this call is okay with it, then I'd kind of suggest that we send that, and I think we're all saying stick with Thursday, correct? Or are we
Well, let
saying,
me ask, is that because Thursday does become Friday for Australia? Is that okay, Vaughn?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
so what we can do is we can put that suggestion out and see if anybody objects, and if no one objects, then we can just go ahead with it and if we can avoid the doodle poll craziness, that would be preferred.
Sold.
Yeah. All right. I think that was agenda topic number one, so that's good. The second thing that we wanted to talk about is this updated governance document, and I'm going to bring it up here on my screen, and we can kind of go over it. I'm not sure if folks, I know that Duncan has looked at this. I'm not sure if anybody else has been able to look at this document that Claudia has been working on. So let me share my screen. So the background of this, why do I not have a share button?
Is Claudia the host?
Okay, well this could be interesting. I don't have, yeah,
I,
you're right.
I have a share button.
Yeah, I do too. It's interesting that you don't.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
here it is. I found it.
There we go.
Okay. So the background of this, right, is that I'm not sure if it was 6 or 9 months ago, Claudia started working along with Oasis staff on this updated governance document. And the reason is because what Claudia had the opinion, and it's true, it's not just opinion, that there was a number of things that we were doing at the OCA that were by convention and weren't written down, or at least weren't written down. She didn't think it's sufficient detail. Things like about how we incubate projects, how the whole process of onboarding a new project is supposed to work, and some other bits and bobs. So they undertook this effort to provide an update to the governance document. So this hasn't been done due to any specific complaint or request, but it has been Oasis's staff that initiated this, right? So Oasis has been initiating this. It's not anybody in the OCA themselves that's caused this. So it is fairly important because Oasis wants to get it done. So we've been getting nudged for quite a while to take a look at this. So wanted to take some time today to try to go over it as a group and go over the changes and see if we can make some progress, at least in this group, on saying, yep, no issue with this, no issue with this, no issue with this, and accepting those changes. You know, there is a fairly large section down here that I don't know if I don't think we're going to get through today. This whole incubation process, which is all brand new. And I think everybody needs to read through it and understand it. I kind of have some questions on this myself. Like, I'm not totally sure if all of this stuff belongs in the OCA governance document. If some of it is because some of these things are being brought up here because you know, the claim is that other open projects are doing it this way. And if that's the case, I don't know why we don't move some of this stuff up to the main open project rules, because there's the OCA governance, and then there's the Oasis open project rules. And anything that all projects are doing, I think should probably be in the rules document.
Makes
As
sense. Yeah.
I agree, but only if all have to do it. If it's, you know, you don't have to do it and someone might not want to do it, then, you know, if it's just a best practice, then I think they should be independent. So it does make for sort of more people having to do it if you do it that way. But if they aren't really going to require it of them, because it might be there's one project that they want that doesn't, that's where it gets weird.
Right. All right, so let's start.
Can you throw the link to this in the chat?
Yeah, I had emailed it out last night, but let me.
Oh, if it's in an email, I'll go find it. I didn't realize. Sorry.
That's right. I'll drop it in the chat. I've got it open here.
All right, so we can just go through it line by line here. Let me increase my zoom size a little bit. Okay, so the first change, non-controversial, it's a clarification of the overview statement saying what we do. OCA develops standardized interfaces to support an open ecosystem where tools interoperate within the need for custom integrations. I mean, I don't think there's any controversy here. I kind of question why this is needed in the governance document, but I'm also not gonna make a big hassle about it.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
Anybody have any thoughts about this?
I think it's actually important to capture the broad objective of what we're doing, because that will have an impact on how you treat the potential sub-projects for incubation. So I think, you know, it's almost like when you're making a decision about a sub-project, you probably need to refer back to what our purpose is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it means it's in more than one place, but that's fine. I mean, it's not that big a deal to keep it saying.
Okay.
I assume this sentence is copied out of one of our other things.
Yeah, I believe so. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm going to do is, as we're going through here today, I'm just going to put June 13th, except for all these, because I can't seem to. Oh, I can. Here it can. Accept suggest. There we go. Okay, good. Second, adding a code of conduct. So today we don't explicitly have a code of conduct for the OCA. Oasis itself has its own code of conduct.
Actually, we do, don't we, Jason?
Well,
we made before they made theirs.
well, I think they're one and the same. Well,
Yeah, I mean, basically they ended up the same, but I think we actually did have one, but I do agree we should just follow. Now that Oasis does have one, we should just follow it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jason, if I could just interject, I'm not sure that we can accept these changes right now unless there's another draft. Doesn't there have to be a vote of the PGB to accept them?
Well, so the reason I think we can is this is just a draft.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah, like, so what I'm trying to get to is if we can all accept this draft, then we can then just send out the update for approval. I don't think we can, I guess, well, I guess what you're saying kind of makes sense. You're suggesting that it makes it easier for people to see the differences if we leave them?
Yeah, I'm not trying to make this any more difficult than it has to be. I guess I'm just concerned that it might be hard for other PGB members to see the discussion on these points. But I think definitely you putting in an annotation like the one you have there is certainly a way to signal that we have considered each of these, and it gives people a suggestion.
Okay, let's do that then. I'll just add comments. And we can work with Claudia after on that, on um on moving the how we want to proceed with voting on the whole document as a whole. I don't think we want to do it change by change, but
No, I think you just put the whole thing out and say any objections.
yeah. All right, anyone have any other comments around the code of conduct change?
No,
All right, so this one is making it clear that the PGB has responsibility for all decisions and what the PGB does, you know. So again, in theory, because the OCA is an Oasis open project and the very first statement is that we have to follow the rules, in theory, this text doesn't need to be there. But I don't see any problem with having the clarifying text here.
Yeah, knowing some other projects, it's good to have it in there.
Yeah. Anyone have any other thoughts? No? Okay. Put the same thing for this and this one.
I think the comment that Chet made is addressed by the fact the sentence before got added. I suspect he added that before the sentence got added.
Yeah. I think you're right, because it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Yeah. Now, the other thing of it is, it does sort of imply that we have a budget.
Right. Well, it does, I mean, it doesn't say that. I mean, if there was one, then it would be.
Well, if there was one, we'd oversee it, but it does sort of imply there was one, but obviously there's not. But leave it in there.
This is more of the same. This is, again, in theory, this doesn't need to be there. It's just I don't know if this is just an update of the link with here. I don't really understand what this changes, but
I might have had the full URL there. I don't know.
I think
It's hard to tell.
it was just a grammar thing they corrected.
all
It
right.
said the rules are here, the members are there. They're two different links. They made it two sentences.
All right, here's the next change to the text around what a maintainer is. Maintainers are responsible for confirming that contributors have signed the appropriate CLAs before merging in their pull request.
That seems reasonable.
It does seem reasonable. I'm kind of curious though, like that that should be being automated by the bot, the CLA bot. Like they shouldn't be able to get to this point if they haven't signed the CLA. So
Oh,
that's
you mean as a technical control on GitHub?
yeah, like it's a little bit worrying because I suspect that the current maintainers are definitely not doing this. I don't think that maintainers are off checking this. I don't even know.
Well, the maintainers should be checking that the bot exists and works. Because the
Yes.
maintainers have the capability to shut off the bot.
Yeah, so here's my core question. I'm not even sure if our maintainers, so I'm gonna add a comment here. Do maintainers even have permission to see who has signed the CLA? Like, I don't know where they would go and do that.
Well, I mean, I think that's really a question for the TSC per the next sentence. So really, it's up to the TSC to ensure that whoever is designated as a maintainer is provided with that information about the CLAs and that it's being implemented. So how they do it is really up to them. But I guess we just need to make sure the TSC knows at all times who's signed the CLA.
Right. That's my point. Like, I'm not totally sure. Like that is recorded in Salesforce today, is my understanding. And I'm not
Well,
totally
no,
sure.
there's a GitHub action, right?
There's a GitHub process and bot that checks it, but I don't know where it's recorded. Like if I wanted to go and manually look up who has signed the CLA, the only place that I know is there's like a thing in Oasis Salesforce. I don't
So
know
if it's an automated process, then I suppose the only time you need to know that information about CLAs is when somebody signs a CLA, or when their CLA expires, if that happens. And I guess who is responsible then for updating the bot in GitHub based on that information, and does the TSC have oversight of it?
exactly.
Well,
That's
and there's
kind of
actually a third point, and that might be what they're addressing is because maintainers have ability to change GitHub actions. So this is sort of a backhand way of saying the maintainers can't shut off the bot. And they have to make sure the bot's there.
yeah.
So,
I
so
mean,
maybe we need to better understand how does
we as a PGB are responsible to make sure the rules are followed. We are delegating that responsibility to the TSC. It's up to them to figure out how to follow it. If they have issues with it, they'll let us know. But I think it just means they just need to make sure the bot's working.
I just want to make sure that they have the tools and access available to fulfill this. That's what I want to make sure.
Well,
well, who
if
has
they
access
don't,
to
we have a
Salesforce?
problem because we certainly don't have them.
Who has access to Salesforce?
Only staff.
Or maybe in that case, it's incumbent on the staff to provide any differences that come up in the CLA list of signers. They have to provide that to the TSC, and then the TSC has to figure out how to implement that.
No, I think it's as simple as just you have to just not shut off the bot. And if somebody has an issue, you got to contact staff. But it's their responsibility to do that, not ours.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I get a new repo, I have to, click, this thing pops up and I have to re-click the same thing I've clicked on 100 other repos to let me in. So I know the bot exists, but I also know maintainers have the ability to, they're either the ones who set it up or the ones who shut it off. Now they might need staff help to do that, but somebody has to actually do that.
Yeah, I thought staff was the only one who had permissioned that, but I don't know. I kind of want to table this one until we can talk with Kelly and Claudia more about it.
Yeah, you definitely want to talk to Kelly and Claudia because again, Chet might have done it one way and they do it differently. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact Claudia put that change in, we probably need to talk to Claudia.
Yeah. All right, next one. I don't think this is a big deal. Define abbreviation. All right, composition. So this is an example of one of the things that we really need to update the governance because it was unclear. We didn't have this written down, right? So the PGB is comprised of one representative from each sponsoring organization, along with the TSC representative as follows. TSC appoints one TSC member to be its voting representative in the PGB. This person does not have to be a TSC chair. Non-voting guests are permitted at PGB meetings by advance by invitation of a PGB chair. Any comments or questions about these?
I'm reading the first sentence of the second paragraph, and I might be misunderstanding this. The TSC appoints one TSC member to be its voting representative on the PGB. So that means there is at all times one person on the PGB who represents the TSC, and they can be from any organization. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct.
And
And
do we know?
we do allow one company to, for lack of a better term, have two votes on the PGB this way. We don't disallow that. And we do allow a TSC representative to not be from a sponsor. It could be either or. You can get
Right.
two votes or no votes. It's both are legal.
Correct.
Okay.
Like currently, technically, right? So Jacques is the TSC representative, which means currently, technically, IBM has two votes.
Got it.
But to Duncan's point, Charlie Frick is also in the TSC, and if the TSC decided to have Charlie be the rep, Charlie would then have a vote, even though he's not sponsoring.
Understood.
Now, I think this is a significant change. It's one of those we want to highlight, right? Because the way things work right now, like I'm pretty sure if you look at the governance right now, the TSC representative is a non-voting member.
Correct.
They're
I believe that's true.
just an observer, right? So we're changing things a bit.
No, they're not. They're not an observer. They're a non-voting member because observers can't contribute.
Okay, well, whatever. So this is a significant change. I think it probably does make sense because I think having some more voting members is a good thing. And I also think having a path that, however obtuse, at least some path to have non-sponsored community contributors be voting members is also a good thing. So I support it, but it is a big change, right? So we want to make sure, I think we highlight this one when we send out kind of the summary of this.
Agreed. And it is how some other groups operate. I'm fine with it. I mean, we are an open project, so we do. I think your point of we should allow at least some minimal contribution from the non-sponsors, and this is
Right.
their path to do that.
And I would assume that the TSC has rules that they would vote for who their representative will be.
That is up to them, but yes, they do.
Okay. Well, yeah, that seems fine.
So Duncan, you had a comment on this. So this is not a change, but you're talking about right now we're linking to lazy consensus, and you think that we might want to redefine lazy consensus. Did you want to talk about this at all?
Yeah. First, I have to read what I wrote 2 years ago.
My concern a little bit is that if we try to redefine lazy consensus, we kind of like making things more difficult. But
I'm not sure the definition we're referencing is actually the right definition for us, but
is there some other one we should point at, perhaps? Or I'm hoping we can avoid creating our own. I mean, the root of it is essentially you want decisions to be based on calls for objection,
right.
right? So I think that's what it's talking about. But
Yeah, I mean, I mean that's what I think of it as too. But the one we're referencing is a very GitHub procedure specific one.
okay.
So this feels a bit like, Jason, what you were proposing for updating the meeting time is we just come up with a time, send it out to the group, and then see if anybody objects. Is that correct?
Right, that's a lazy consensus operating model, and that's kind of what we try to do for most things, unless it's like a major thing, right? And that's what this is trying to say. For most decisions, he operates on lazy consensus. Um, but that, like, this is not new, right? But what Duncan's saying, he's saying that the current linked definition is not accurate, in his opinion. So, I mean, we could
But we're
remove,
not doing it based on comments on GitHubs, you know.
right? So we could remove the link, we could find a new link, or we can find a new definition. Those are kind of
I
the
mean,
three.
I'm just looking at the Apache definition here, and I don't see anything. I don't see anything wrong with it.
All right, if it is the Apache one, then you're right. The link might already got updated. It used to be to a GitHub one. Maybe this one's already been fixed because yeah, the Apache one is the general, just sort of no one objects within so many days.
Yeah, it's an appropriate amount of time, usually 72 hours. That might be a bit short for this particular
Well, but
board,
and
but
again,
other,
we usually put it in our thing anyway. We usually say within a week, but sometimes we say 2 weeks. So as long as you specify the time, there might be times where you need to be quick, but usually we give longer. But yes, if it does do the Apache one, I'm okay. It used to do the Git one, but again, I wrote it 2 years ago, so
yeah.
All
so
right.
I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
It's handled, whatever the right word is.
All right. Now this one here, um, so Chet is removing this one because promoting work to a waste standard track does not require a full majority vote. It requires a special majority vote. So, I mean, I think that's something we just have to do because we're out of sync with Oasis policy here.
Yeah, we're not allowed to change that one, so yeah.
Yeah. Um, I kind of wonder, and earlier we were defining some of these terms, but we don't define what special majority, like,
We should hot link it to the higher level rules.
yeah, like,
Oh, no, it is the full majority is defined up in the main paragraph. So we just got to add the equivalent link to the simple majority.
yeah, I guess that would be
Prior full majority rule. That link is in there already. It's just we need the same thing for the simple.
this needs to be linked to the definition of special majority vote.
Is it special or simple?
This one is special. This one is simple.
Oh, we got three choices.
Ah,
Yeah, it's so
Special
confusing.
and simple.
I know. I mean, I find it so confusing and overkill, but whatever. That's for Oasis board discussion.
Well, and it is the bigger the deal, the more you make sure people at least were possible to contribute. Because simple is only half the people are there if you had quorum. Full is half the people entirely, and specials more than half plus no more than a quarter object. So there were
Yeah,
years in the making all those
special
rules.
and special is like 2/3 or something, right?
Is it the 2/3 one or is it the half but no
Yeah,
more than a quarter object?
it is 2/3 and no
Okay.
more than a quarter object. I'm just looking at the definition now.
Oh, it's both. Okay.
All right. Moving on. So deleting this section, nominees for the TSC can be submitted by any individual to the PGB. I don't really know why that has been deleted. Oh, she just moved it down here. Okay. TSC members are appointed in the discretion of PGB, reconfirmed on a 2-year basis or until they voluntarily resign. Nominees can be submitted by individual from PGB. In addition, each sub-project should send a representative to TSC. That's a convention we've been following. TSC members must have signed the ICLA and if appropriate the ECLA.
By the
I
way,
think-
that does mean we're due probably for a reconfirmation.
That is correct. We should queue that up for a future agenda, yeah. What is this? This is not in accordance with current practice. Expectations that each sub-project center representative TSC. This should be reflected. This 2-year confirmation period doesn't make much sense if people join TSC at different lines of the year. I also don't think any of the BGB is actually managing the roster. Alternative approach would be to create a attendance policy. I see no problem with that. Is responsibility of the PGB to document how the TSC roster is populated and maintained. So whatever is written down is what should be done.
Yeah, I thought we were doing what we did. Does the TSC not have, does the TSC have people on it we didn't appoint?
No, I think Claudia's just saying what you just said, right? Like, are we actually doing this 2-year reconfirmation?
We haven't been around that long yet. We aren't that negligent yet.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Any other comments on this stuff? I don't think this is that controversial. Um, so Chet has a comment about this recall procedure, right? So this sufficient justification. So he doesn't like this word sufficient justification. I think the meaning of this is it should probably say proposed justification or and I don't know how to word it. The point is that you submit the request to the PGB with the reason you're submitting the request, and then it's up to them to go and act. Right? It's I don't think it's trying to define what sufficient justification is. But maybe we should pick a better word there.
Well, maybe delete the word sufficient.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I think the objection seems to be that the justification should be pinned to something in the rules, as opposed to the word sufficient, which is a little bit vague.
Well, I mean, we do have the code of conduct. We should probably reference that.
That would probably be a good start.
But yeah, I think the point is that violation of the code of conduct might not be the only reason, right? But
Could we just list it as an example? So say submitting the request and justification to the PGB chair or co-chairs, and then in a new sentence put, for example, this might include violations of the code of conduct, something like that.
Or maybe put a parenthesis after justification, open paren, e.g. code of conduct violation, close paren.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that makes it sufficiently clear. Jason, you might. Oh, yeah. I was going to say you might need to switch in the top right corner where it says editing mode. You might need to switch into suggestion mode.
yeah, I'm dragging around my Zoom window so I can access the thing.
Yeah, all the little chat and photos get on top of everything.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that clarifies it.
All right. Okay, we're down to some of the last giant stuff. And I'm actually not sure if I'm comfortable going through all this here today because it's a big wall of text and I don't think everyone's read through it. But essentially, this wall of text is trying to codify an incubation process for new projects, right? And also define what these working groups are. Because today we often create these working groups and they're not defined, right? Because the Oasis Open Project process doesn't talk about working groups. So that's what this is trying to define what working groups and how they can transition into becoming sub projects. So I mean, this has happened multiple times, right? Happened with IOB. I believe it also happened with, I'm not sure what else it happened with, but it definitely happened with the IOB project.
Yeah, and where it's, and again, I haven't read it, or at least haven't read it in a couple of years. Where it gets weird is we sort of have a working group in the ontology area that was actually originally a project, and it's a little confusing. So if we do, I'm not sure what this says, but whatever it says, we should make sure we actually then do. So like we might have to make ontology a project like it originally was, or we need to do whatever it says to make it a working group. But we and architecture might be the same way. We do need to codify it, and then we need to actually do whatever we say. We have to make sure whatever we codify applies to all these things we have.
Right.
My, my understanding of this is that, put simply, that potential new work is discussed at the TSC level, and then they set up a working group to essentially trial, or explore the new work area, and then after a certain point, it can transition to being a sub project by vote of the PGB. So I think it just gives you a almost like a trial period. And I suppose the barrier here is if you can't find enough people, or if the TSC can't agree to form a working group, then it's really not worth taking on the project at all, and we don't need to even consider it at the PGB level.
Okay, that isn't how we've historically done it. We've historically done it at the PGB level.
Yeah, I suppose the risk there is if we do it at the PGB level and there's not support at the TSC level, or after further exploration, we find that this is really not a suitable sub-project, there's not enough interest, then we're kind of stuck with a thing that we've committed to do, but now we no longer, we want to take back that commitment. And I think this is intended to, my understanding anyway, is it's intended to avoid the risk of taking on a sub-project that actually didn't really have strong support.
So there's a chicken and egg problem, though. The TSC won't have the people. So the TSC is pretty project oriented to the projects that already exist. So at least to date, new projects have come in, from lack of term, from outsiders. And they bring them to the PGB. And the first thing we do is say, hey, you can't even talk to us. Let's become a PGB member. So one, we get more money. Oasis gets more money and we get more PGB members that way. And if they don't do that, we just drop it. And that has happened, actually. And then in other cases, they said, sure, joined, and we, went ahead and formed it, and they brought in the technical resources for it. So that's like the stupid acronym I'm forgetting that the most recent project we made. That wouldn't have occurred by this process, I don't think. So I personally like the
So
PGB method, but
just to clarify, how do people get appointed to the TSC? Because we have people on the TSC that are not sponsors, right?
yeah, the TSC is by existing projects. The existing projects pick who to put on the TSC. And then we approve them. I mean, basically, the PGB does pick who's on the TSC, but traditionally it comes out of the pool of people already working on the project, and they propose to us, hey, we think, Xiao Wei should be the whatever rep, and, so-and-so should be the, Charlie should be the IOB rep, etc. But it is, so we did approve them, but they sort of came up with them. But they're all very project specific people. So new projects don't have a voice in the TSC. The
Right.
only
So
one they have a voice in the PGB is one of the rules, at least it used to be in the governance, and it's, I think, and even in the open project rules, to open a new project, a sponsor has to sponsor it.
yeah, I mean that seems fair, but I wonder if you could, if the PGB could vote to bring an external person onto the TSC because they have an interesting project, and then to form a working group around that person to advance their project and just see where it gets to. Is that workable? Can we bring someone in, someone from a different organization? Can we, at the PGB level, vote to bring them onto the TSC for the purpose of participating in a working group around their project?
Well, isn't that sort of forming the project in the first place?
Except that it's not a project yet; it's a working group, and so we're I guess trying it on and seeing if it fits, and maybe having this person in, this external person being brought in, ostensibly on a temporary basis, assuming that if the sub project or if the working group proposal doesn't get voted into a sub project, then you could assume that that person would cease to be involved in the TSC from that point.
Well, so the two, I think the two most recent projects we've done, one that we rejected and one that we accepted, I'm worried it would have come out. I'm worried that we would have accepted the one who refused to join the PGB. I do want to sort of somehow keep in the, hey, you got to have somebody who's paying money to, all said and done, we operate because we have, staff support because people pay dues to OCA, because otherwise, because everything you do at TSC and below, you don't have to be a member. Anybody can do it. So I don't want there to be the ability to have a project that doesn't have a sponsor behind it. And on the flip side, I want to encourage the people that do want to do all the work to, go ahead and be a sponsor and get in. So I'm not sure your method would work that way. If it would still work that way, it'd be okay. But I'm drawing a blank on either of them, who they were.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not advocating for a position. I'm just exploring the intent, perhaps, or how this would work in practice. Let's say, for example, you had a small organization or an informal organization, so not affiliated with a company, but more a hobbyist that's put together some useful code and wants to effectively donate it to the OCA. But on the other hand, we want to avoid becoming a dumping ground for abandoned projects. And so what you could do is you could say, well, let's get a person from this notional, volunteer organization who don't have funds to stump up a PGB or rather an OCA membership, and we could bring them onto the TSC, allow them to form a working group if they can find enough peers that are interested. So they have to sell their project internally and get enough people to rally behind it, and then have that working group explore further. And then at some point, if the PGB decides this is within our remit and we think it's valuable and there's enough support from the existing PGB members, we take it on as a sub-project. Now, the originating organization or individual that submitted that project might not even be involved with the OCA at that point. They might even leave, or they might, for example, stay on the TSC but never actually join the PGB. But now we have this intellectual property, this asset that we've all agreed by a full majority vote is worth including, and it contributes to the to the mission, I guess, without anyone needing to pay to join the OCA. So I guess it gives a path for projects to get in that otherwise would not, because there's no funding, or maybe they don't have any formal funding. But it also gives us sort of a preliminary step to filter out projects that, for example, are being pushed into the OCA by a funded, well-funded entity, a company, but actually they're really just trying to offload a maintenance burden to someone else. So I'd be keen to see if this has worked for other similar organizations to OCA, but to me, I think it has some merit.
I'm just doing a time check because we're pretty much at time. I don't think we're gonna
either.
Oh, sorry. Duncan, you're saying something?
Since we're out of time, I was just saying, if Vaughn thinks we should go that way, I'm okay with it.
Well,
Just-
I think
so I would suggest, because I think we have not read through all this.
Right.
I think we should just table it. We've got another one down here that we need to look at as well around maintenance requirements. So I think we made really good progress today, though, going over this. So, I mean, we can attempt to try to get people to do this at a band between now and the next meeting. So, that would be my proposal, is to try to poke everybody to go and, get an active thread going on the mailing list. To see if we can at least get some working consensus about some of this stuff, to move it along faster. I don't know if anyone
My
else.
rules in the last one, we should kill CASP, even though I don't think we should. So I think they might be a little bit strict, but.
Well, the last one, so Chad made a good point. It doesn't actually define what an inactive project, what's the consequence of it. If you didn't
Okay.
define that, then what are you doing it for? I think he's got a good point.
Well, it's just because you don't do stuff every week. That's why.
All right, so I actually have to run anyways. So, I think we've made really good progress. There's one other thing that I'll just, yeah. I was hoping that we'd have a little time to discuss, things going on this summer, but we can talk about that, next call. All right, anyone have any other closing thoughts or remarks or things that need to be brought up as high priority?
No, good meeting.
Yep.
yeah,
Good.
great meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.